Haunted Whispers. Press play to discover 7 sinister secrets forbidden by the cursed night. Karen's phone vibrated violently against her nightstand, an urgent reminder of the dangerously thin line between her reality and whispers of dread lurking in the dark. She was nearly asleep, the guilt of another late shift clawing at her conscience, when the message appeared like a ghost. Press play to discover the secrets forbidden by the cursed night. It sent chills racing through her spine, igniting a sense of unseen danger that crept beneath her skin. The quaint streets of her suburb, always so peaceful, now felt like a trap. Shadows stretched unnaturally in the dim light, breathing life into the structures that surrounded her. She hadn't thought much about the tragedy that had occurred years ago involving Mrs. Malone, the beloved teacher-turned-tragic figure who left behind a town drowning in whispers and regret. Then her children began to turn to open air, giggling at unseen companions, voices barely above a murmur. "Mommy, they want to play." They chirped bright-eyed, innocent. A knot tightened in her stomach. Who were they playing with? Her late-night shifts blurred into restless days where night terrors replaced sweet dreams, and the reality around her began to twist. The lights would flicker, moments of stillness replaced by heavy silence. She found herself checking the locks again and again, a feeling of being watched gnawing at her edges, turning her safe haven into a prison. Then came the messages, persistent and taunting. Each one felt like a finger prodding into a festering wound. "There are things you don't know," they whispered through the cold screen. "Uncover the truth before it's too late." Karen shook her head, drowning out their demands, gripping the armrests of her streaming chair as if they could anchor her in a reality she could recognize. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Karen felt the walls of her home closing in, eyes heavy with dread as the sun sank lower. She had tried to talk to Mr. Thompson, the kind neighbor, who always smiled too wide, but even his familiarity felt foreign now. Something ticked hollow in her mind, and she couldn't shove it away. What secrets did he hold? She felt compelled to investigate, driven by instinct. A rattle at the window sent her heart plummeting. Shadows flitted just beyond the backyard, fleeting glimpses of figures twisting into grotesque shapes. Her breath hitched, pooling fear flooding her senses. The closer she edged toward the truth, the thicker the air became. She felt the whispers tug at her sleeve, mocking the veil of normalcy she fought so hard to maintain. Steeling herself, she approached Mr. Thompson's door, her pulse thumping like war drums against the emptiness of twilight. Just as she reached for the doorknob, the air crackled with tension, a final warning rippling through the darkened trees. What awaited inside could unravel her world. What if the truth was darker than she could have ever imagined? Karen hesitated, her hand hovering just above the doorknob. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she fought the rising dread in her gut. The flickering porch light cast eerie shadows across Mr. Thompson's face when he opened the door, a tight smile stretched across his lips that felt more sinister than welcoming. "Ah, Karen. What a surprise," he said, his voice gravelly, almost too smooth. The air thickened with the unmistakable scent of something rotten hidden beneath his floral cologne. She forced a smile, stepping past him into the dimly lit hallway. The walls closed in like prison bars, his home, filled with an uncomfortable silence, felt like a mausoleum. "Can I offer you something? Coffee? Tea?" he asked, leading her into a living room decorated with outdated trinkets and family portraits that stared blankly back at her. "No, Karen began, but her voice faltered as she caught sight of a framed photo. It was Mrs. Malone surrounded by a group of students, including her own children. Their eyes glinted with an unnatural brightness, a spark that sent a chill down her spine. She didn't remember these pictures being here. "Mrs. Malone was such a wonderful teacher," Mr. Thompson said, his laugh hollow. Such a shame what happened to her. The atmosphere shifted, pressing against her like a weight. What do you know about her? Karen asked, her voice shaking slightly. He leaned closer, hand resting on the back of the couch, as if he were drawing her in. The town has its secrets, my dear, he whispered, the words curling around her like smoke. But some truths are better left buried. Ice coated her veins. The whispers seemed louder now, swirling around her, urging her to leave while she could. But before she could turn away, Mr. Thompson's eyes darkened, his voice dropping to a grating whisper. They just want to play, Karen. It's innocent really. You should let them. Her stomach churned, memories of her children's gleeful laughter dancing through her mind. What do you mean? She demanded, but the air thickened with tension, stifling her voice. He stepped back, a glimmer of something menacing flickering across his features. You'll find out soon enough. There's always a price for knowledge. The room seemed to pulsate, a heartbeat of dread resounding through her chest. She could feel the presence of something darker lurking behind his words, a bargain she didn't want to make. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed from the door, breaking the tension like a gavel. Both of them turned wide-eyed, and for a moment, time froze. With a sinking feeling, Karen instinctively stepped back, edging toward the exit, heart pounding. Stay, Mr. Thompson ordered softly, his tone shifting, becoming chillingly calm. You don't want to turn away from this. But she couldn't move. A voice echoed in her mind, a cold familiarity calling from beyond the door. It was unnervingly sweet, woven with laughter. Mommy, let us play. Her throat tightened, and panic surged. A glance back at Mr. Thompson revealed an unsettling satisfaction in his eyes, as if he knew exactly what was about to happen. The knocking grew more insistent, each thud a pulse in the suffocating silence. She wanted to flee, but fear had cemented her in place. If the truth was buried in those knocks, how much more horrifying would the uncovering be? As she turned toward the door, her hand trembled. Was she ready to face what lay beyond? The secrets of the night were about to spill over, and the line between her children and the unknown was blurring faster than ever. What awaited her on the other side? The door rattled again, rattling in its frame, and Karen felt it vibrate deep in her bones. Each knock felt like a countdown, and her heart raced faster. Panic pushed her closer to the door. Her instincts screamed to turn and run, but as she gripped the doorknob, an icy jolt shot up her arm. Don't open it. Mr. Thompson's voice sliced through the air, low and menacing. You don't know what's waiting for you. But the haunting laughter from outside spiraled through her thoughts, urging her on. Let us play. What game was waiting for her? The tone twisted her stomach, twisting desperation into a swirling knot of fear. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but she was tangled up in Mr. Thompson's gaze, which held her like a predator. Karen, his voice dropped, almost sweet, yet edged with malice. The children, they've been waiting a long time for their fun. Fingers trembling, she lifted the latch, the metal cold against her skin. With a swift turn, the door swung open, revealing a sight that froze her soul. A ghostly figure stood on the porch, a small child in a tattered dress, hair hiding her face. The child's laughter echoed against the darkened surroundings, sing-song yet entirely wrong. Mommy! The child chirped, her voice bright but chilling. We're ready to play. Behind the girl, shadows writhed like smoke, looming and twisting, obscuring whatever lay in the beyond. It felt wrong, as if her very essence was being tugged from her body, like she was staring into a well of madness. No, she gasped, stepping back. The little girl's smile stretched impossibly wide, eyes glinting with an otherworldly sheen. Don't be scared. It'll be fun. Remember when we used to play? The child tilted her head, and Karen felt her heart drop. Beneath the dirt, grime, and night's shadows, she recognized her daughter's voice, distorted but the same. Emily, the name escaped her lips like a prayer, but it sent shivers coursing through her. Mommy, come play with us. The girl beckoned, her tiny hand reaching out as if inviting Karen into an abyss. The shadows swelled behind her, almost writhing in anticipation. And then Karen saw them, faces peering from the darkness, children she recognized, their eyes shining with that same eerie, unnatural brightness. What had they become? Fear clawed at her throat. No. I want tea. But the words felt weak, crumbling under the weight of her terror. Why don't you believe in us, Mommy? We've missed you. Mr. Thompson stepped beside her, a smirk plastered on his face. You see. They only want to play. But once the game starts, it doesn't end until someone pays the price. They're hungry for fun, and you're the only one left to join them. The girl's laughter twisted, merging into a cacophony of familiar voices, a chilling symphony of her children's laughter mingled with something darker. Karen's gut twisted at the thought of what a game meant. Was it safety or slaughter? With each heartbeat, the shadows pulsed, thrumming against her decision. She was torn, a delicate thread between the joy of her children and the horror of what they might truly be. The door loomed before her, an entrance to whatever playground awaited. Join us, Mommy, the child sang, voice now an echo of joy and dread. As Karen stood frozen in place, she realized one dreadful truth: some games are played for keeps and blood. As she fought for clarity in her despair, a thought thundered through her mind. What sacrifice would be demanded for her to reclaim the twisted innocence of her children? She had to know. She had to act. But at what cost? In the silence that fell over the porch, the invitation hung heavy in the air. Chaos beckoned. And soon, the darkness would rise to claim its due. Karen's heart thundered in her chest, a desperate drumbeat erasing all reason. Each ounce of her being screamed at her to close the door, to deny whatever nightmare awaited her. But the child, a twisted reflection of innocence, pulled her closer, like gravity, like a falling star beckoning her into the abyss. Come play, Mommy, please. The voice dripped with false sweetness, a syrupy lure that danced on the edge of madness. Behind the girl, the shadows coiled and writhed, hungry and expectant. Emily! She cried, desperation clawing at her throat. What have they done to you? The tattered dress fluttered slightly, and for a split second, Karen saw a flicker, a glimpse of clarity behind those bright, empty eyes. Were they gone? The realization hit hard. I want tea. I can't. Mr. Thompson took a step closer, his presence an unsettling comfort. You can't escape this, Karen. They want you to play, and they're not known for their patience. His words slammed into her like a brick wall. Would they hurt her? Or was it worse, had they already taken something precious from her? The shadows began spilling over the threshold, engulfing the porch in a creeping darkness. They seemed to pulse with a life of their own, vibrating with energy as if they were alive. Mommy, let us have fun. The child lunged forward, her tiny fingers grasping for Karen's hand. The other children followed suit, shadows dancing around them like moths to a flame. Each small face was a familiar echo, a taunt of what was lost. No! Karen screamed, shoving the door shut. The cacophony of laughter morphed into shrieks of disappointment, cutting through the air like shards of glass. Just leave me alone. Panic surged. She locked the door, breathing heavily, her mind reeling. But the laughter didn't stop. Instead, it bubbled into sinister glee, slipping through the cracks of the wood like smoke. She turned, eyes wild, searching for a way to escape this horrific reality. What if Mr. Thompson's voice trailed off, thoughtful yet dark? What if they want to play a different game? One where you can win them back. All it takes is a simple choice. A choice. She echoed, confusion fraying her nerves. He nodded slowly, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Every game has rules. If they're hungry, perhaps you could offer something to satisfy them. You've lost children, yes. But have you thought of what you could give to return them to you? His words twisted in her mind. What could she possibly sacrifice? Would it be worth unleashing this darkness? Every instinct told her to revolt against his manipulations, to stand strong, but Mr. Thompson's words dripped like venom, intoxicating her thoughts. Mommy! The voice of the child returned, frenzied and demanding from the other side of the door. Don't you want us back? Join us. We can play forever. The shadows receded slightly, waiting, eagerly anticipating her answer. Was this her chance to reclaim her life, or the path to deeper despair? With every heartbeat, the walls seemed to close in. Could she take the gamble? Or would she plunge deeper into the unknown? The air thickened with a sense of dread. The children's voices melded into a haunting chant, demanding her choice. She turned to Mr. Thompson, fear written all over her face. What must I give? His smile widened, showing teeth that shimmered with malice. Oh, dear Karen, the cost is always personal, and that's what makes it unbearable. The door rattled again, louder this time, the voices filling her ears like a drum, drowning out her thoughts. As she hesitated, a question settled over her: was the price too much for a chance at the return she so desperately craved? The invitation grew louder, and so did her dread as she wondered, was there still anything left worth saving? What shadow would she have to face next? The shadows throbbed against the door, dark and restless, a clamoring mass seething with anticipation. Karen gripped the edge of the wooden table, each pulse of the darkness echoing in her bones. She could feel the air shift, heavy with the weight of something unseen, something desperate and hungry. Mommy! The child's voice called again, now layered with a strange urgency. It was no longer a mere plea, it penetrated like sharp needles, each tone twisting her insides. You don't want to miss out on the fun. Fun? She whispered, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. Just a game, right? The morbid irony didn't escape her. The notion of fun danced on the edge of oblivion, luring her into a fiery chasm. What game did they want to play? Mr. Thompson leaned closer, his breath hot against her cheek, chilling her compounding dread. They want to bring the lost back, Karen. A simple sacrifice, a morsel for a morsel. What will it be? His eyes glittered with twisted glee, urging her to make a choice. Karen could hear the laughter again, but this time it felt more sinister, more mocking. The shadows skittered beneath the door, scratching and clawing, yearning to escape. How long before they broke through? Would she become one of those whispers if she lost all control? Suddenly, the house shivered. A low groan emanated from the walls, as if her very home had come alive, trembling under the weight of an unspeakable fear. She took a step back, thoughts racing. What did the children want? What did they need? The fog of terror wrapped around her, tightening its grip. Could she actually give up something personal? Could she act against her own blood for a chance at mercy? Think, Karen. What would you sacrifice for Emily? Mr. Thompson pressed, tilting his head like a predator sizing up its prey. Not her. The words stumbled over one another as she recoiled the thought of such a betrayal. Yet, in the depths of her heart, guilt gnawed stronger than her resolve. How could she be torn between love and desperation? Could she condemn another child to this nightmare to save her own? The children's voices melded into a frantic symphony. We want to play. Share with us. Just a drop. Each phrase sliced through her conscience, raw and pleading. Then, a thought flickered, a tormented answer inspired by dread. It wasn't just physical sacrifice, it could be something darker, the sin that lingered in her heart, the festering guilt since that dreadful night. Was the cost of one lost soul too high? But was it enough to feed their insatiable hunger? No. She shouted into the chaos, daring to reject the looming bargain. The shadows recoiled, taken aback by her defiance. Yet, they twisted and wriggled, more furious now. Mommy, don't you want to see Emily? She misses you. The child screamed, her tone now tinged with malice, echoing through the wood. We'll have so much fun together. Karen's breath hitched. Visions of laughter shivered in her mind. Memories of what once was clawed through the darkness, and she felt her grip loosening. What if there was another way? What if the game wasn't just about sacrifice? Join us. Came a voice, sharper than the others, sending shards of ice racing down her spine. As they chanted, the shadows surged, pressing against the door anew, a tide of darkness rising to swallow her whole. No! She cried again, despair flaring brighter. Tell me how. The laughter reached a fever pitch, rattling the windows. Mr. Thompson's face turned grave, revealing the danger beneath that grin, but in that desperate plea, the flicker of hope ignited something inside her, then the shadows shrieked, a cacophony ready to engulf her in despair. Time is running out. Mr. Thompson warned, a fleeting grin revealing his true nature, but there was fear behind his eyes. Make your sacrifice. As the door trembled for one last time, a decision loomed heavy in the air. What was she willing to give up? The darkness enveloped her, shadows threatening to snuff out all light. Could she brave the endless night, or would she choke on her bargain of loss? And just like that, the whispers turned silent. A taunting calm hung in the air. She stood on the edge of something far worse than night, but suddenly the door creaked open slightly, revealing a flicker of glittering eyes. Welcome back. What awaited her there? The truth twisted by shadows. Would she dare step through the threshold? Or was it already too late? The door creaked slowly, a reluctant gateway into an abyss she never knew existed. Karen's heart raced, each thud matching the rhythm of the whispers gathered inside. It was inviting and terrifying, a seductive pull she struggled to resist. The air was thick with a stench she couldn't quite place, damp earth, burnt flesh, and the sweetness of decay. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet her feet were glued to the floor. Don't be scared, Mommy, the voice beckoned, now a harmonious blend of childlike laughter and chilling menace. You wanted to see her, didn't you? Karen leaned in, drawn by the promise of her daughter's face beyond that thin crack. The shadows inside the room shifted, swirling like a tempest ready to unleash its fury. A rush of adrenaline surged through her. What was waiting for her? Was it truly Emily? Or a grotesque reflection of her misery? Just take a step, Mr. Thompson whispered, his sinister grin widening. The fun awaits. Time is of the essence. Choose your sacrifice could free you both. Her mind raced back to that dreadful night, the fragile threads of memory wrapped around her like barbed wire. The screams, the cold thrill of guilt, the moment she realized she had lost everything. Her breaths quickened, panic clawing at her throat. Could she really confront the past? Or would it swallow her whole? Mommy. I'm waiting. The voice rose higher, a wail filled with urgency and craving. The gleaming eyes grew closer, reflecting off the jagged pieces behind the door, shapes of her lost child vague yet vivid enough to ignite an ember of hope. Then, silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Karen caught sight of something shifting just inside the dark, a silhouette morphing with the growing shadows. It extended a hand, delicate yet twisted, adorned with tiny fingers she knew so well. Emily. She whispered, the name barely escaping her lips. The figure hesitated, shadows tucking around her like vipers. I'm here, Mommy. Come play with us. That last word dripped with sweetness, like poison embedded in honey. The threat surged within her. A sickening feeling settled in her gut. What if the children were no longer children at all? What if they were aberrations born from grief, a twisted mockery of innocence wrapped in eternal darkness? Could she face a reality where her child had become one of them? Mommy. The voice echoed again, sharp and grating, tugging at the last shreds of her sanity. Join us. Join the fun forever. Forever, it echoed back, twisting the knife deeper. In that fleeting moment, she could see fragments of her memories, holidays spent together, laughter filling the void. But they were still locked behind the door, held captive by pain and malice. The thought of giving in, of stepping through and losing herself sent waves of dread crashing over her. Don't do it. She screamed, surprising herself, her voice breaking through the darkness. You can't have her. But the laughter responded, rising to a fever pitch, a cacophony of jarring notes that filled the space, mocking her defiance. The shadows pressed even harder against the door, determination igniting their relentless advance. Mommy, please. We just want to be with you. The plea broke her, slipping through her mind like grains of sand in an hourglass. Who could she trust when the echoes of her life felt like a bitter trap? Time's up. Thompson hissed, the joy on his face turning cold, predatory. Make your decision. The final countdown begins. A countdown. How much time did she have left? The shadows were seeping into the room, black tendrils grasping at her ankles, wrapping tighter with every breath. One final decision. She could feel it, the weight of it nearly crushing. Don't run from us, Mommy, the voices sang. We only want to play. It came to her with a jolt, an idea, a desperate gamble. But would she pay the price? Could she face the consequences of her choice, whatever they may be? As the darkness loomed ever closer, Karen knew she had to act. The choice would demand everything. All right, she trembled, tears blurring her vision. I'll play. Suddenly. Silence crashed against her words, the shadows freezing in their tracks. The stillness was palpable, weighted with expectation. Welcome to the game. And with that, the door trembled, the glittering eyes disappearing as the shadows engulfed her vision. What kind of game had she just agreed to? What had she unleashed by surrendering? Was there a way out of this, or had she just stepped into the hell that awaited? As darkness wrapped around her, the echoes of her decision faded into an eerie calm, and she felt an inexplicable pull toward the unknown. The game had begun, but its rules were veiled in terror. What awaited her beyond that door, and could she ever hope to escape? She felt weightless, as if momentarily unmoored from reality. Then, like a stone dropped into a pond, ripples of dread spread through her. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light, it pulsated with a life of its own. There was a temperature shift, a drop that chilled her skin. Welcome to our world, Mommy, the voice chimed, echoing from every direction. The sound curled around her like a serpent, squeezing as it slithered. She couldn't see, all was shadow. But she could feel it, something ancient, something wrong. A whisper brushed past her ear, taunting, don't you want to play? Karen focused her breaths, trying to steady her racing heart. She had surrendered, yes, but to what? Would her choice yield a path to her daughter, or would it lead her deeper into this wretched void? Show yourself. She shouted, her voice trembling with unspent fear. The laughter roared, an unsettling blend of glee and malice that echoed off unseen walls. To play means to discover, Mommy. Are you ready to find out what you really seek? Without warning, a burst of light illuminated the space around her. It flickered like a dying flame but revealed enough for her to discern slowly moving figures. Shadows morphed into forms, children small and twisted with features that were both eerily familiar and grotesquely alien. Their smiles were stretched too wide, eyes glimmering with an unnatural hunger. Emily. She gasped, straining to spot her daughter. But in that mass of writhing forms, every face was obscured, layered with darkness and despair. One child stepped forward, a decayed doll clutched in its bony fingers. Its skin was a ghastly gray, eyes sunken yet reflecting a glimmer of life. Or was it death? We're all waiting. Waiting for you to play the game. What game? Karen demanded, her voice cracking under the strain of desperation. Each choice comes with a price. The child's words were musical yet sinister, echoing in her mind like a death knell. The laughter, once sweet, now sounded like nails dragging across rusted metal. You started this, Mommy. You said you'd play. We cannot begin without you. Visions flooded her mind, snapshots of Emily's face, her laughter, and the shattering moment when it all unraveled. The anguish twisted in her gut, a swell of pain that threatened to swallow her whole. I didn't mean it. Karen cried out, teeth clenched. I didn't want this. Wanting is different from needing, the hoarse voice of another child whispered. What you want isn't always what you need. Before she could process the implications, the ground beneath her began to tremble, as if the very essence of the room was shifting. The figures danced around her, their movements chaotic yet rhythmical, forming an unholy symphony that pulled her closer to the core of the nightmare. Join us, Mommy. They sang in an unsettling chorus, extending their arms as if inviting her into a dark embrace. Let us play the game of sacrifice and truth. Suddenly, shadows emerged from the corner of the room, swirling like smoke, and from them, a grotesque mirror took shape. Inside, Karen saw herself. But it wasn't just her beneath her reflection, there was an echo of her past, each regret, each pain washed over her in a torrent. Someone was watching, a twisted version of herself that beckoned with a cruel smile, urging her to surrender even more. You could have everything you lost, it crooned. Return to the past. Find peace at a cost. I don't want peace. She screamed in defiance. I want my daughter back. The room warped, expanding into an endless void of twisted laughter and taunts. Then you know what must be done. Her heart pounded as Karen grappled with the realization these creatures demanded a choice, a sacrifice that could shatter the fragile remnants of her sanity. Failed attempts to escape echoed in her mind, each one more excruciating than the last. Choose wisely, the children sang. What will you trade for her return? As terror gripped her throat like a vice, Karen's eyes darted to the mirror, caught between hope and despair. What price would she pay to reclaim Emily? Just then, a blinding light flashed from the mirror, cutting through the darkness. Something beyond that glare beckoned her, something that felt achingly familiar yet impossibly distant. Make your choice, Mommy. Could she dare to step forward? Everything hinged on this moment. Would she risk the ultimate sacrifice to unearth the truth, or would she be lost to the shadows forever? As the room trembled with anticipation, she felt the weight of an irrevocable decision bearing down on her. The light from the mirror cut through the darkness with an ethereal glow, an inviting beacon amidst the chaos. For a heartbeat, Karen hesitated, her heart pounding like distant thunder. She thought of Emily, of her childish laughter, bright and innocent before everything shattered. Could this light bring her back? Choose, Mommy, the voices cried, their urgency almost palpable. What do you wish to give? Fear and desire twisted together within her like a dark vine, constricting her thoughts. She remembered the strangled joy of watching her daughter play on sun-drenched days, the warmth of their embraces shattered now by the suffocating present. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. Was this light a farm of false hope or the only path back to her daughter? Scanning the shadowy forms, Karen's instinct screamed to flee, but she steeled herself. If I step forward, what will I lose? Everything and nothing, a child whispered, its voice a haunting melody. You must dig deep, Mommy. Sacrifices reveal true worth, and sometimes, what you give can change fate. Each word licked at her thoughts like fire. Was it worth it? Would she be trading her sanity for a heartbeat of happiness? The shadows began to swirl faster, the shapes shifting like smoke in the wind, creating a wild vortex that danced around her, wrapping her in an otherworldly embrace. The laughter enveloped her, and for a moment, it felt enchanting, intoxicating even. Emily! She called out, desperation pouring from her lips as she tried to break the illusion. Where are you? They halted, the chaos freezing momentarily as if the world held its breath. You must see, Mommy. The truest form of sacrifice is accepting that which you have lost. The weight of their words pressed upon her, their eyes so deeply hollow yet sparkling, seeming to peer into the very essence of her soul. She staggered back, realizing these children twisted in agony, were once like her daughter. Your choice. They urged, the tremors in the air becoming electric. Will you step through, or will you choose to forsake your heart? Shifting her gaze back to the mirror, she saw the girl within, her own essence drowning in shadows, the tendrils reaching out to clutch the warmth of light. It was either this or remain imprisoned by the confines of her own despair. Then, without knowing why, Karen stepped forward, the pulsating light pouring into her like a breath of clear air. A sensation of weightlessness wrapped around her, the shadows fighting to reclaim her. Panic surged within, the room trembled violently as the cacophony intensified. A pang of something, a memory, perhaps hit her like a hammer. There was Emily, full of life, her laughter echoing in the background. Her heart raced. She was on the precipice of a choice that could save her or doom her. "Mommy," a voice, softer than a whisper, tugged at her heart, distant yet achingly familiar, but as her foot crossed over the threshold into the blinding light, the world splintered. An explosion of sound and color enveloped her, and for one heart-stopping moment, she felt free. As if the darkness recoiled from her touch only to constrict tighter, dragging her back into the storm. "Welcome back," the chorus sang, and a new shadow emerged, larger, darker, with eyes that burned like dying stars. "You think you can reclaim what was lost? You must choose again." As the ground around Karen shook violently, she glanced back, the faces of the children contorted in a mockery of joy. A new reality spun wildly around her, and she understood that this was no mere game. A new sacrifice loomed just ahead, one she hadn't anticipated. Would she face this malevolent force and find the way to her daughter, or would she emerge from the shadows only to vanish forever? "Make your choice, Mommy," the voice whispered, cold and consuming. Fists clenched, she felt the fear ripple through her again, knowing the deepest truth had yet to be unveiled. There was no escaping the consequences. And in the depths of the gathering dark, she heard Emily's soft cries, resonating deeper than any terror. What would be the price she would ultimately pay for a glimpse of her beloved daughter? The darkness writhed and pulsed around Karen, thick and suffocating. The air crackled with a rancid energy that made her skin crawl. It wasn't just a choice now, it was a challenge. The shadows stretched like gnarled fingers, taunting her. The larger figure loomed overhead, an entity of dread, its features obscured yet so commanding, it drew every ounce of attention. "You grasp for hope," it intoned, voice an echo of someone familiar, just out of reach. "But the very hope you seek demands blood." Karen's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" Its laughter was a hollow sound, a clattering of bones. "Every promise comes at a cost. Look around you, they all bear witness. They wished for their lost joys, just like you." A wave of anguish crashed over her as she saw the hollow-eyed children, their spectral forms twisted into agonized expressions. They swayed slightly, their bodies flickering like flame dancing in the wind. They had been like Emily once, their laughter had mingled with joy, now replaced by desperate echoes. "Mommy," one of the voices broke through. "You can save us. Save her." Step deeper, the light pulsed behind the mirror, brighter yet more treacherous than before. It clung to her, beguiling in its clarity, whispering secrets only it could tell. "Do you want to withhold your heart, or would you let it break again?" Karen recoiled at the choice laid out before her. She could retreat to swallow the pain, to let Emily fade into memory. Or she could embrace the unknown, the dangerous light that promised what she had yearned for so long. "Why should I trust you?" Her voice shook, swallowed by the shadows. "What gives you the right to play with our lives?" The darkness chuckled, deep and rasping. "You've already lost, my dear. You embraced agony when you allowed despair to consume you. Fear not, I merely offer you a path." Looking at the children, trapped souls of what could have been rage, ignited a fire in her chest. She wouldn't let them fade unacknowledged. Not while she still breathed. "Tell me what I must do. Show me." She yelled, defiance breaking the chains of her fear. "Every step deeper into the light reveals a piece of your truth," it replied, voice smooth like silk yet thick with menace. "Each truth exacts a price." Images surged through her mind, Emily's laughter transformed into sobs, a birthday party filled with friends, and then the silence, that gut-wrenching silence after the crash. The trauma constricted her throat. "Mommy, I need you," the distant echoes cried, filling her heart with a mix of grief and determination. Karen's hand tingled with the energy of the light, urging her forward as she took a brave step into the mirror's glow. The shadows convulsed, recoiling as if ready to strike, and she felt their cold breath against her skin. Each step felt monumental, a march toward inevitable confrontation. The darkness screeched, angry and frantic, as Karen traversed the threshold, her voice steady despite the mounting dread. "I will not let this chain me. I will find her. Mistress of sacrifice." The entity growled, dark and furious. Your resolve will be your undoing. In the storm of light and shadow, visions of Emily's wide, trusting eyes pierced through the chaos. Help me, they begged, echoing against the walls of her mind, pulling her deeper into torment, and then she saw it, a flicker, a spark hidden within the storm, a potential path. Hope. Or was it a trap? As she turned, the mirror shattered into 1,000 shards, each reflecting not just her face, but the faces of all the lost children watching with rapt attention, their eyes wells of yearning. The darkness shrieked, the shadows writhing back as if repelled. But then came laughter, a sinister, triumphant laughter that echoed through the chaos, filling spaces with dread. Sacrifice is a chain, my dear, it whispered, thick with malice. And you've only begun to understand its weight. As terror gripped her heart anew, Karen knew this was just the beginning. What terrible truths awaited her on this twisted path? The shadows swirled violently, dancing dangerously close to the flickering light, clawing to pull her back. Would she succumb to despair or rise against the malevolence? The voice of her little girl reached out again, a soft plea haunting in its sincerity, mingled with the monstrous laughter around her. Mommy, choose, you must choose. And suddenly, as the darkness closed in like a vice, it became all too clear this was no simple sacrifice. What of love remained when one dared to reach for hope? Karen stood in the depths of swirling darkness, her heart pounding like an ominous drumbeat. The shadows loomed, whispering sinister promises of power and reckoning. Every flicker of light that barely punctured the billowing blackness sent sharp chills racing through her spine. She was caught in a relentless vortex of despair, swirling with echoes of her children, trapped in a game with rules she barely understood and stakes higher than she had ever imagined. Mommy, a voice wormed its way back into her thoughts, the distorted edges softening for just an instant as hope flickered like a dying ember. It was Emily, or at least the shapeless remnant of her, one that felt familiar yet utterly alien. You promised to find me. Taking a breath that felt like shards cutting her lungs, Karen pushed forward into the chaos. What must I do? She yelled, determination boiling inside her like magma, begging to explode. I'll find a way to get you back, just tell me. The shadows seemed to shudder at her fierce declaration, their laughter morphing into something more chilling, almost delighted. You know what must be traded, the entity's voice thundered, reverberating through the shadows like a storm. The past you cherish is the weight you must shed. Images flooded her mind, memories of picnics on sunlit days, each laugh mixed with the innocence of childhood. But now, they felt tainted, the brighter moments dulled by the looming specter of tragedy. She felt a lump in her throat, a new weight pressing down, but she clenched her fists. What do I sacrifice? Pain, it hissed, its tone now a slithering whisper. The anguish that binds you to sorrow must be offered to the abyss. The more you release, the more you gain. The shadows writhed closer, eager to catch a piece of her as if sensing the flicker of her potential. She had bottled up grief for too long, embraced guilt as an anchor. But now, the urge to break free surged like wildfire. I'll release it. She screamed against the encroaching dark. No more chains. I choose love over despair. With each declaration, fragments of her pain surfaced, the guilt over not being there, the tension that had tethered her to the nightmarish memories of loss, and the deep lingering blame that whispered her name every dark hour. She thought of Emily's bright smile, how she had lost it, and her heart twisted painfully. Just a glimpse of her, to see her again, she pleaded. I want no power, I just want my daughter. The void laughed mockingly, but she wouldn't falter. She took a step forward, bearing her soul in earnest as she released a silent plea. She could sense the cackling darkness recoiling from her light, sensing her sincerity. I offer my pain. My guilt. For a chance to hold her again. The words erupted from her mouth, fierce, hot, and raw. As she surrendered the fragments of her heart, the shadows began to recede. The grotesque entity flickered briefly, the hunger lessening as if it was momentarily sated by the pain laid bare before it, the children's faces twisted with anticipation. You choose, Mommy, they chorused, their voices carrying the innocence that once was but now dripped with an edge of something darker. Join us, become one with us. She gritted her teeth and continued her sacrifice. I choose my love for Emily. I will fight for her. The pain within her felt lighter, almost liberating as she surrendered yet another piece, and then it happened. Suddenly, the swirling darkness split, revealing a faint light in the center, a soft glow where her daughter's essence seemed to twinkle. Mommy. The soft, hauntingly beautiful voice wrapped around Karen, pulling her deeper, forcing the shadows to embrace the spark of her offering. Karen rushed toward the light. She could feel Emily's warmth radiating from within, an urging pull that beckoned her to grasp the fragments of happiness still clinging tenuously to the edges of despair. As her fingers stretched toward the light, and with a mighty thrust of will, she burst through the fabric of shadows into a new space flooded with an ethereal glow, where the whispers faded. She could hardly breathe as emotions surged and cascaded through her. Emily! She cried. The light pulsed, growing brighter, and there, standing before her amidst the remnants of darkness, was her daughter Emily, radiant, her laughter ringing like chimes in the wind. You found me, Mommy. You chose love. Tears streamed down Karen's face as she rushed forward, wrapping her arms around her daughter, who felt real and warm. No shadows here, only the clean light of 1,000 promises. Now, we can play. Emily beamed, her eyes sparkling with the innocence she thought lost forever, but the darkness hung in the background, an echo of choices made and sacrifices given. Intense reminders that whatever they had fled from would always linger, even in radiant light. Karen pulled back slightly, catching the shadow of doubt dance across Emily's face. Even now, the game had shifted. Mommy, will you always choose me? The darkness whispered from behind, a sinister reminder that love demanded vigilance. Karen felt a jolt of urgency ignite her strength. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to meet her daughter's gaze. Always, sweetheart. We'll face whatever comes next together. The warmth and light swirled around them like protective wings, solidifying a pact stronger than any shadows could ever break. The echoes began to settle, no more whispers, no more shadows, and in that moment, as they held each other, Karen knew. The real game wasn't about sacrifice, it was about love, everlasting, fierce, and more powerful than any dark entity could ever comprehend. Yet somewhere, in the depths of the shifting shadows, the voice trembled with a warning. This is only the beginning. As she looked down at Emily, a part of her heart and soul, she knew they would always be ready to fight together. If this conclusion hit you hard, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter that will dive even deeper into the shadows. Smash that like button so everyone else can see this epic finish. Don't hold back, flood the comments with your thoughts and theories. What do you think happens next? And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this chilling journey. This is the moment to show your support, so don't wait even one more second. Let us keep exploring these dark tales together.